It's really an honor to be here in Cebu at the Asia Women's Forum. I am here because I admire and respect what Rebecca and Richard have been doing all these years to promote the Philippines and to bring the talent here. Thank you very much. So whenever Rebecca calls, I say yes, because it's very hard to say no to that woman in the back here. So thank you really, Rebecca and Richard, for the vision that you have to also focus on women, the women's agenda in the Philippines. You were the first to host that. And when you talk about advocacy groups like SILK, there's another one that I'm a member of called FCC, Filipina CEO Circle. You do need that sisterhood. So a lot of what Sheila and the other fantastic speakers spoke about this morning, I hope to echo in my presentation, because there really is no magic sauce. It's experience and hard work. My career, I wish I could stand here to say I planned it all out, but obviously it wasn't that way. It was something that went all over the place. For starters, I spent 8 years studying chemical engineering. So I thought, also there are chemical engineer in the room. So I really thought that I wanted to be in space and be an astronaut. That was after my mother said you could never be a lawyer. So I thought, okay, then I'll be this astronaut. But after 8 years of studying chemical engineering, and I found out that research in that little laboratory, it's very solitary work. And so for 2 years doing research by myself, 18 hours a day in a lab, I went crazy. And I realized that I'm a people person, so I needed to do something different. And when I started to look for jobs in my industry, chemical engineering companies, Procter & Gamble, the oil companies of the world, Pfizer, etc., I wanted to work for them, but they couldn't understand how someone like myself, with her master's and almost a doctorate in chemical engineering, didn't want to do research. They all wanted me to join their firm and do research. And I said, I don't care if I start at the bottom. As long as you give me a job in general management, I need to be with people. But long and short, I went to a mentor at that time and I said, I can't seem to find the job in my field. What should I do? And this mentor then said to me, well, Karen, since you can't, the best thing for you to do is to look for the best management training program in any company, in any field that you can find, and learn that industry from the ground up. So that was wonderful advice, and I got a job with a company called American President Lines. It is a logistics company, shipping. You saw the container vessels. APL calls the Port of Cebu. I hope it still does. It used to. And I thought when I interviewed with them in Wall Street in New York, I said, aha, I've made it. I'm going to be one of those wonderful working women in a suit going to work in New York City in Wall Street. So I accepted the job. Little did I know that my training in Wall Street would be a few weeks, and then after that, almost all the time would be in shipyards, in the ports, in rail yards, aboard container vessels. But guess what? I learned to love it. It was so much fun. But because that company that I was working for said, Karen, we love what you're doing here. Now we need you to go back to the Philippines. All of this was in the US. They said, we need you to come back to the Philippines because we want you to set up our first customer service call center type of operation in Asia Pacific for American President Lines. Did I want to come back to the Philippines and be with my mother and father who would be very strictly looking after me? So the answer was no. But I wanted my free life in the US, but I was convinced by my company that this would be a short-term assignment and that after a year or two, I could go back to the US and continue my solo career there. So I took that challenge. I came back to the Philippines, and little did I know how that decision to come back would greatly affect where I'm standing today. And you heard some of the introduction that Richard said, really be part of this industry that I love, which is the BPO industry. So I came back with APL to set up this call center, but the reason I didn't go back is, again, unplanned. I fell in love, and I married. I married very quickly. I had 2 children, and my husband was a lawyer, so not a career that's very mobile. So that was the end of my dream to go back to the States with American President lines. And I needed to look for another job. And here it was, in just a few weeks, actually it was only 2 weeks since I thought I needed to look for a new job, Citibank came calling, and I said, I knew nothing about banking. I never took a business course at all in school. You heard about 8 years of engineering, correct? Not an accountancy course, nothing. But Citibank said, we will take a leap of faith with you. We know that you have something between your ears, as Sheila said, and we can train you. This is all about, it's very simple to learn, but it's about people and wealth management. You can learn it. So I joined Citi, great company. And in the 24 months that I spent with Citibank, that was where I had the most training. I was trained to death. 18 months of that 24 was in training. But I realized that retail banking wasn't for me. I didn't get excited by coming to work every day to try to make rich people richer. That didn't resonate with me. So when I got the phone call from a certain Gabby Lopez, because they were going to set up a new telephone company at that time, there wasn't even a name to that telco. He said, could you please join us? And I said, to do what? And he said, to set up everything and anything to do with the customer. So I said, is that with a telco, would that mean your operator services? He said, yes. I said, how about places in malls? Because people didn't have locations. They didn't have phones to make these phone calls. He said, anything, Karen, that touches the customer, we want you to create it. And so I joined the company, and my first office was just the side of a room with a chair and a box for my table. But we gave birth to a company called Buy and Tell. And did I know anything about electrical engineering or telco engineering? Nothing, zero. And here I was in charge of installation, maintenance, translation, and repair. So what did I do? I found the smartest head of engineering, and every meeting I sat beside him, and for the first number of months, all I did was take notes of everything that I didn't understand, and he gave me a tutorial at the end of every day until I learned the telco terms, and I learned all of that. So when I was working for them, I read in the papers how a company called America Online, and many of you here won't even know what AOL was, but it was an internet service provider, and they had decided to create a customer service group in Clark, the former Clark Air Force Base. I'm reading about this in the paper, and I'm telling you, this is like 1999. And I'm like, wow, they've done this? If they can do this for their clients, and AOL's not even in the Philippines, what more can a company like Buy and Tell, whose partner was Verizon, a big US telco, we can definitely do this. We have English competent, very smart individuals working for us. Why can't we do the work for Verizon and for the world? So that's when I went on that journey, as Richard mentioned, and found my calling, which is the customer service BPO industry here. So it was that career light bulb moment. So little did I know that putting on that customer headset when I was working for APL, when APL asked me to come back to the Philippines, kicking and screaming, to set up its first customer service location, little did I know that this would become my heart's niche. So life is truly a book of many stories. Many stories because we have so many choices that are given to us. If you're not familiar with the books, Choose Your Own Adventure, these are children's books. It's where you play the part of the hero and you decide what the end outcome will be. And that's what I think the story of all of our lives is about. We have so many choices, and I think for our kids, even more so today. But even with the many choices, there are a few core common themes in my life. Many of us have spoken about it up here. It's hard work. There's no kapalit for hard work. Flexibility, courage, and resilience. Yes, resilience, because we're going to face many failures in life together with the successes. So I learned many lessons during the way, and I'd like to share some of those lessons with you. The first key lesson is, please don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid. Don't think that you're going to have all of the data before you make decisions. I know we're in a data-filled world now, but at the end of the day, take that leap of faith. When somebody offers you something, take it. Many times when people say that you're capable of doing something, they see something in you that you don't see in yourself. Believe in what people see in you. So take those career chances. Now, when I talked about that marriage that I didn't allow me to go back to the US, well, guess what? Unfortunately for me, that marriage didn't work out. And here I found myself a single mom with 2 children, but I survived. And that's another thing when we talk about career choices or choices in life. Don't worry. There isn't anything that life will throw at you that we cannot all survive. So we have to take those journeys, and the biggest mistake is if you don't risk and if you don't make those courageous leaps of faith. Don't live life in the safe zone. Don't not take challenges. To quote Nelson Mandela, the greatest glory in living lies not in never failing, but in rising every time we fall. So throughout all of these journeys, you also need to take time to reflect. So the second lesson is work on yourself. Sheila mentioned recharge. This is where you need to work on yourself intellectually, spiritually, emotionally. If there are courses, take those courses. You're here all today, so hopefully you'll leave here with 1 or 2 lessons, because each of us standing here, we're a finite resource. We can't do everything and anything. We need to take the time out to rejuvenate, to replenish that well, or else we'll be no good to anyone, not our families, not those we work with. So please mark the time in your calendars, your me time. What is my me time? I know my staff here knows what my me time is, because I usually am up at 5 in the morning. I get on my exercise machine, I look at my phone, and I start sending emails. So they hate me because I start sending those messages at 5 in the morning. But that's, aside from that, I actually do my prayers. I go to service or mass or early in the morning, and that's where I find that quiet time to rejuvenate myself. Another important resource is mentors. I mentioned how mentors help me. Look around the room. There are many mentors that are there in your personal life and also in your corporate life. Take advantage of people that you admire, because you won't have all the answers. It's very good to bounce things off of someone else. So if I didn't listen to those mentors, I probably wouldn't have taken that short-term assignment in the Philippines. I wouldn't have known what to do after graduate school. So I valued all the people that surround me. So the third lesson is really learn from people. Build your support communities. Who are your support communities? Your best friends. We're very lucky with women. I'm sorry about the men in the room, but women, we do like to talk. So we're lucky to have our sisterhoods. So we build our sisterhoods. There's also the community of your mentors, your community of elders, as I call it, and also your family. If I didn't have those mentors urging me to do what I didn't think I could do, work at Citibank, be a banker, or be in telecoms, I would not be where I am today. If I didn't have that sisterhood of friends, it would have probably been very hard for me to have gone through this breakup of my first marriage, and when I thought my life was falling apart. So take time to build and nurture your communities, and we should make, by the way, a special effort to help women. We women have to help women. Madeleine Albright's quote is one of my favorites, and that is, there is a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. Yes? Right? And believe me, I've worked for some women in the past that weren't so nice to me, but never mind. So throughout these adventures, and that fourth lesson is, we all need to commit to commit. So I have been asked about work-life balance, and I think it's hard. My life is crazy. I mean, I don't know where I'm going to be today or the next day. But the point is, you have to make sacred covenants with your family. Family first, those that you love. After that, when you talk about the very basics, like I'll make sure to go to the PTA, I'll make sure to make 8 out of 10 of your whatever it is in your school, whether it's a play, 8 out of 10. I will not commit to 100. After you do that, then you do the same with management. Tell them what you need to be successful. Because I work, and a lot of my early work required so much travel, I also needed to have commitments with the people who helped me at home. So my yaya got a credit card. And she got a credit card because as a single mom, without a husband, if something happened to my children, she needed to run to the hospital or run to the store to be able to care for them. So that was one. And another thing too, at my work, I have my own wife at work. Her name is Lel, and she has worked with me now for 12 years. Any company that wants to employ me, whether it was the JP Morgan or QBE, they know it's buy one, take one. You take me, you take my wife. You hire me, you hire Lel. So there's all the other things that you have to realize you can't have it all. When I was younger, I loved to go out and drink and make friends at work. But once I had children and I knew that my time was precious, what I do now, and my staff knows, I brown bag every day. I bring my lunch every day. I try to work through that so I have a fighting chance to get home at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, to have some time with my husband and family who didn't even know I was coming to Cebu today till I told them last night. But anyway, so I had to give up those lunch and dinners, but I gave them up gladly because, you know, they understand as well. So it's really important to ensure that when you commit, you give your best. And lastly, throughout all of these adventures, I was very proud to be a woman. So celebrate being female. We all have masculine and feminine traits, and we learned earlier on about, like Myrna was talking about, how men are now learning how to develop the feminine. But we have 5 special female attributes. First of all, we are relationship focused. That means we think about how people feel. We women leaders should maximize this. To quote Maya Angelou, I have learned that people will forget what you said, forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Second, we value harmony and consensus. That means we women leaders build cohesive work environments. Third, we like to vent and speak. Hence, we are more inclusive in our decision making. Fourth, we are detail-oriented, which allows excellent planning and execution. And lastly, but not the least, we are intuitive internally. They talk about female intuition. Don't lose this. I believe it was the female in me that helped me make those leaps of faith in the many adventures of my life. Many of my life and career choices weren't logical. I didn't have all the data, and I didn't make the right choices all the time, but I had that gut feel, and I trusted that gut feel. To sum it up, my mantras in life are: first, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Work on yourself. Treasure your support communities. Commit to commit, and don't lose the female. So with that, I'd like to end with a quote from Clarissa Pinkola Estes, because I talked to you about my story. I hope that you will all go out and let stories happen to you, and that you will work on them, water them with your blood and tears, and your laughter till they bloom, till you yourself burst out into bloom. Thank you very much.